The portal's edge crackled with quantum instability as Elena stepped through, her tablet clutched against her chest like a shield. The air itself seemed to compress around her, squeezing her lungs until she feared they might collapse. Colors no human eye was meant to process streaked past her consciousness. Mathematical formulae made visible in impossible hues. Then, abruptly, it ended. Elena stumbled forward onto a floor that rippled beneath her feet like mercury before solidifying. The three luminous beings surrounded her, their forms settling into vaguely humanoid shapes that seemed chosen for her comfort, rather than reflecting their true nature. The human requires oxygen-nitrogen mixture, one communicated, not through sound, but directly into her mind. The air around her shimmered, adjusting to human respiration parameters. Remarkable, another thought spoke, appendages of light extending toward Elena's tablet. Such primitive computation technology, yet the quantum algorithms she developed, independently. The third being, whose form pulsed with deeper, more complex patterns, approached Elena directly. Its presence felt ancient, weighty with accumulated knowledge. 26 civilizations believed humans incapable of abstract mathematics beyond basic calculus, it communicated. 3 betting pools across the galactic arm have now collapsed. Elena found her voice at last. You've been gambling on human intelligence? Observing, the Ancient One corrected. Since your species first scratched mathematics into clay tablets. Most advanced races believed Earth would produce nothing of significance before your sun's natural expansion consumed your world. You were going to let humanity die out. Elena's scientific curiosity gave way to outrage. The beings exchanged flickering patterns between themselves, their equivalent of uncomfortable glances. Non-intervention protocols, the first explained hesitantly. Established after the Arcturus. Disaster. What disaster? Elena demanded. Another time, the Ancient One interrupted. The origin equation awaits, and our transit window is unstable. The human must be processed and prepared. From nowhere, a crystalline object appeared hovering before Elena. Within it swirled what appeared to be living mathematics, equations that breathed and evolved, patterns that recursively generated, new patterns. This is merely one fragment, the Ancient One explained. 1/300th of the complete equation. It has driven 118 of our greatest minds to cognitive dissolution. 3 entire species have destroyed themselves attempting to solve it. Elena stared, transfixed. She recognized nothing in the mathematical structures, yet something about them resonated with her on an intuitive level she couldn't explain. Fragments reminded her of music, of art, of patterns she'd observed in nature. Why me? She whispered. Why humans? Because you still dream, the second being answered simply. Because your minds have not specialized to the point of limitation. Because you still perceive mathematics and art as interconnected rather than separate domains. The portal behind them pulsed, its edges beginning to destabilize. Choose now, the Ancient One urged. Return to your lab, your limited human existence, or help us unlock the very source code of reality itself. Elena looked back at the wavering portal. Through its distortion, she could see her lab, security forces breaking through the door. Her old life. She turned away from it. Show me the equation, she said firmly, stepping further into the unknown. The portal collapsed behind her with a sound like the universe sighing. The Academy's central atrium stretched impossibly upward, its walls lined with thousands of crystalline chambers where beings of every imaginable form conducted experiments that defied physics, as Elena understood it. Some manipulated raw matter with appendages of pure thought. Others existed as collective, consciousness clouds, collaborating on calculations that spiraled through the air in 3-dimensional equations. They're staring at me, Elena whispered to her escort, a hovering mechanical construct that the consortium had assigned as her guide. You are the first human most have ever observed, the guide replied, its voice a pleasant synthesis of chimes. Many believed your species would destroy itself before achieving interstellar contact. The Praxian collective lost significant resources betting against human survival. Elena straightened her shoulders. Well, sorry to disappoint them. The guide led her through a series of gravity tubes to her assigned quarters. The door, a shimmering field of probability equations, parted at their approach. Elena stepped inside and immediately burst into startled laughter. The room was a bizarre interpretation of human habitat, furniture bolted to the ceiling, a bed filled with what appeared to be small rocks, and wall decorations consisting of mismatched Earth symbols, traffic, signs beside ancient hieroglyphics beside corporate logos. Is the accommodation not satisfactory? The guide inquired. It's creative, Elena managed. Who designed this? The Xenobiological Approximation Department. They studied Earth transmissions extensively. Which transmissions exactly? All. Available broadcast signals from your world. There was significant debate about whether your television entertainment represented actual human environments. Elena sighed. Could I perhaps have a normal bed? And maybe furniture on the floor? After the guide departed, promising adjustments, Elena collapsed onto the now horizontal bed. Exhaustion from the dimensional transition crashed over her in waves. Just as her eyes began to close, the probability field at her door rippled. A six-limbed figure slipped inside, its skin pulsing with patterns that shifted between deep azure and vibrant gold. Instinctively, Elena reached for something to defend herself. No alarm necessary. The creature flashed in bioluminescent patterns that somehow translated directly to Elena's mind. I am Zal, theoretical probability engineer. I've been monitoring your arrival. You're spying on me? Observing, Zal corrected, limbs moving in graceful synchronicity. Your species represents cognitive anomalies the Academy has never encountered. Your minds simultaneously employ precise mathematical logic alongside completely unstructured creative abstraction. Processes most evolved species have separated. Is that unusual? It is considered inefficient, Zal replied, moving closer. Advanced species specialize neural pathways for maximum processing efficiency. Yet you solved the wormhole stability equation through what our analysis suggests was partially guesswork. Elena's exhaustion temporarily forgotten, she sat up. Not guesswork. Intuition. A distinction the Council does not recognize. Zal's patterns darkened. 3 species before you attempted interpreting the origin equation. The Narration developed collective psychosis. The Vox harmonics committed species-wide suicide. The quantum mentats simply disappeared. That's supposed to encourage me? It is meant to warn you. Zal's patterns formed a symbol Elena somehow recognized as urgency. The consortium doesn't tell candidates the full danger. If you fail, humanity may suffer consequences beyond your individual fate. Before Elena could respond, proximity alarms blared throughout the Academy. Zal's pattern shifted to alarm. What's happening? Elena asked. Impossible, Zal flashed. Your dormant neural patterns are interfacing with the Academy's quantum network. Your dreams, they're projecting into the central atrium. On the walls, around them, images appeared. Intricate quilt patterns from Elena's grandmother, their geometry eerily similar to components of the unsolvable equation. The council chamber fell silent as Elena's 8th simulation collapsed into quantum chaos. The 7 cerebral masses floated in their gravity-neutral suspension fields, their telepathic disappointment pressing against her consciousness like a physical weight. The human experiment has failed, announced the eldest council member, its ancient thoughts carrying overtones of smug satisfaction. 8 attempts, 8 failures. The probability of success diminishes with each iteration. Elena wiped sweat from her forehead, the neural interface at her temples burning against her skin. I need more time to understand your computational framework. If I could just— You have been provided with our most advanced neural augmentations, interrupted another council member. Species with half your cerebral mass have achieved better results. The eldest member's thought voice turned acidic. Perhaps humanity's evolutionary path was a cosmic error, a branch that should have been pruned. Acid dripped from its hovering form, hissing as it ate through the presentation platform mere inches from Elena's feet. The message was clear. Later, in her quarters, Elena violently tore the alien technology from her temples, leaving small bloody marks. Her hands shook with equal parts rage and terror. The aliens had been right about one thing. Approaching the equation through their methods had been a disaster. She retrieved her crumpled notepad from her jacket pocket, the last physical paper in the academy, brought from Earth. With a pencil, stub worn nearly to the fingertips, she began to sketch. Not equations, not formulas, patterns, the swirling cloud formations of a summer thunderstorm, the precise mathematical relationships in Bach's fugues, the golden ratio in a nautilus shell, the elegant complexity of her grandmother's quilt designs. Hours passed as Elena covered every surface with interconnected sketches. She worked in a trance-like state, moving from mathematics to music to natural patterns and back again, creating connections no logical progression could justify. When Zal phased through her door, an ability Elena hadn't known the alien possessed, the six-limbed being froze, skin patterns cycling rapidly through shades of astonishment. "What are you doing?" Zal flashed, bioluminescent patterns betraying confusion. Elena barely looked up. "Working. This is not logical progression. This is not mathematical analysis." Zal moved closer, examining the sketches spreading across walls and ceiling. "What method is this?" "Intuition," Elena replied, connecting a hurricane spiral pattern to a section of musical notation to a quantum probability curve. Seeing connections that might not make logical sense but feel right. Feel. Zal's patterns shifted to a hue Elena hadn't seen before. Our species abandoned feeling as a cognitive tool 15,000 generations ago. Inefficient, unpredictable. Maybe that's exactly what you're missing. Elena stepped back, surveying her work. Your species are all specialists. Perfectly. Evolved for specific types of thinking. But humans, we're cognitive generalists. We make logical leaps. We find patterns where there might not be any. Zal's skin flashed with rapid calculations. That approach has a statistical failure rate. And yet we solve problems, Elena interrupted. Not by following every logical step, but by jumping ahead, by mixing disciplines, by connecting things that shouldn't connect. She pointed to her sketches of the equation components. This isn't just mathematics. There are patterns here that remind me of music, of art, of living systems. What if the origin equation isn't just a formula, but a composition? As if in response, the Academy's monitoring systems around them hummed to life, scanning Elena's sketches and beginning to reconstruct them as holographic projections. Where the alien technology had previously rejected her inputs, now it seemed to resonate with her approach. Impossible, Zal flashed, patterns cycling to alarm. The systems are responding to emotional intuitive input. Elena smiled for the first time in weeks. Maybe the universe isn't just logical after all. The grand amphitheater hummed with tension as thousands of alien minds focused on Elena. The chamber's architecture shifted continuously, reorganizing to accommodate the various physiological needs of its occupants. Crystalline terraces for silicon-based life forms, antimatter suspension fields for energy beings, dense methane pockets for gas composition intelligences. Elena stood at the center, her crude paper sketches now translated into shimmering holographic displays floating around her. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice remained steady. The equation contains musical harmonics, she explained, activating her presentation. Not as metaphor, but as fundamental structure. She initiated the sequence, rearranging components according to musical intervals rather than logical progression. The equation's segments began to pulse with rhythmic patterns. Derisive telepathic commentary swept through the chamber until the resonance reached critical frequency. Several crystalline beings in the upper tiers began vibrating uncontrollably, their outer shells cracking as the harmonic patterns forced resonance in their molecular structure. "Cease immediately," commanded a symmetrist representative, a being of perfect geometric precision whose 8-dimensional body projected into 3-dimensional space as a constantly reconfiguring series of flawless polyhedrons. "This is mathematical heresy," The architect's voice cut through the chaos. Fascinating. The human has identified harmonic correspondences our analysis overlooked for millennia. The symmetrist representative drifted forward menacingly. This creature introduces chaos into sacred order. The penalty for mathematical blasphemy is nullification of consciousness. The human will be tested, the architect declared, its multidimensional form rippling with authority. The quantum labyrinth will determine validity. A collective gasp echoed through the amphitheater. Zal's patterns flashed urgent warning signals at Elena. "What's the quantum labyrinth?" Elena whispered. "A testing chamber where reality itself fluctuates according to mathematical principles," Zal explained hurriedly. "No candidate has achieved higher than 40% predictive accuracy. 3 died when their cognitive processes couldn't adapt to the chamber's chaos patterns." The architect fixed its impossible gaze on Elena. "You have 26 standard units to prepare your approach. Success grants access to the sacred archive. Failure? It left the consequence unstated, but Elena understood. Her life, and possibly humanity's standing in the cosmos, depended on her performance. In a subterranean preparation chamber, Elena worked frantically with Zal and a growing group of young alien rebels, junior researchers from various species who had been watching her work with growing interest. "We must merge approaches," Elena explained, sketching rapidly while alien appendages manipulated holographic models around her. "Your computational precision with human intuitive leaps." A young quantifier, a species evolved specifically for mathematical processing, hesitantly suggested, "What if we initialize the algorithms with emotional parameters rather than logical axioms?" "Yes," Elena exclaimed. "Emotion as seed value, precision as execution framework." Their hybrid algorithm took shape, a revolutionary approach using intuitive pattern recognition to make probabilistic leaps, then verifying with alien computational precision. When the chamber's opening arrived, the Academy's central atrium was more crowded than any gathering in recorded history. Betting pools had formed across 12 galaxies, with the overwhelming majority wagering on Elena's rapid failure. The quantum labyrinth, a perfect sphere of shifting reality, opened before her. Inside, causality itself fluctuated unpredictably. Elena took a deep breath and stepped inside, carrying not the advanced alien computational devices but her own hybrid creation, a fusion of human intuition and alien precision. The chamber sealed behind her, becoming opaque as reality distorted within. For 3 excruciating hours the assembled beings waited. The symmetrists circulated confidently, already planning Elena's execution ceremony. When the chamber finally reopened, Elena emerged pale but standing. The results flashed across every display in the Academy. Predictive accuracy, 93.2%. The previous record of 40% had been shattered. Riots broke out in the lower levels as religious sects proclaimed contradictory interpretations. The symmetrists' leader vanished immediately to implement countermeasures. Elena caught Zal's eye across the chaotic chamber and smiled wearily. The first real test had been passed, but the real danger was just beginning. Elena approached the archive entrance, a quantum-locked vault that had denied access to all but the highest-ranked Academy scholars for millennia. 2 symmetrist guards blocked her path, their perfect geometric forms pulsing with barely contained hostility. "Step aside," Elena said with more confidence than she felt. "The architect granted me access. The human will submit to security protocols," one guard responded, extending a probability scanner toward her. Before the device made contact, the archive's entrance, an ornate door covered in mathematical symbols from a dozen extinct civilizations, began to glow. Patterns matching Elena's brainwave signature appeared across its surface, pulsing in perfect synchronization with her heartbeat. "Impossible," the second guard flashed, geometric form destabilizing momentarily. "The archive has initiated automatic recognition." The massive doors parted without a touch, revealing darkness beyond. "The human has manipulated the security systems," the first guard accused, but both moved aside. protocol overridden by the archive's autonomous response. Elena stepped through into darkness. As her eyes adjusted, she gasped. The archive wasn't a room but a vast multi-dimensional space where time itself behaved strangely. Near the entrance, artifacts from relatively recent civilizations, mere millions of years old, floated in specialized containment fields. Deeper in, the relics became progressively older and stranger. "Careful," Zal warned, slipping in behind her. "Time dilates unpredictably here." Some scholars entered for what seemed hours and emerged centuries later. They navigated the labyrinthine collection, passing thought crystals containing the collective memories of collapsed galaxies, mathematical proofs carved into materials unknown to science, and devices whose function defied comprehension. At the archive's center hovered the original origin equation fragments, physical remnants discovered across 12 galaxies over thousands of years. Unlike the processed digital versions Elena had studied, these were raw and unfiltered, some etched in metals unknown to science, others existing as pure energy patterns, several apparently carved from the compressed cores of neutron stars. "The containment fields will allow limited interaction," Zal explained. Previous scholars could only study them for brief periods before neural damage occurred. Elena approached cautiously, examining the original fragments rather than the Academy's sanitized versions. Almost immediately, she noticed discrepancies. "These aren't the same," she whispered. "The versions I've been studying, they've been altered." Zal's bioluminescent patterns shifted to confusion. They were standardized for consistency. The irregularities in the originals were corrected. "Not corrected, destroyed," Elena said, anger rising. "Look at this section. It's not a mathematical error, it's a deliberate variation." Like what?" Zal flashed. "Like jazz improvisation, like weather patterns, like the controlled chaos of living systems." Elena's excitement grew as she examined more fragments. The Academy fixed what they thought were mistakes, but they were never mistakes at all. The fragments themselves seemed to respond to her understanding, their energy patterns shifting subtly, resonating with her presence in ways they never had with alien scholars. Suddenly, a violent tremor shook the archive as security alarms blared throughout the Academy. Elena's neural implant activated autonomously. "Incoming transmission," it announced in its synthesized voice. "Origin, Sol System, Earth." "Earth?" Elena gasped. "That's impossible. The distance—" Yet the quantum-entangled message was unmistakably from her laboratory on Earth. Her resonator had continued operating, maintaining a tenuous connection across impossible distances. The message compressed billions of bits into a single quantum pulse. "Elena, your partial transmissions received. Working backwards from your data. Unconventional approach yielding results. Sending complementary framework. Integration may complete pattern." Earth Collective. Her former colleagues working with the fragmented data Elena had unknowingly transmitted had independently developed theoretical frameworks that complemented her discoveries. As Elena began overlaying Earth's approaches with the original fragments, the equation began reassembling itself autonomously in the space between them, revealing a structure neither purely mathematical nor artistic, but something transcendently both. The archive's ancient systems hummed to life around them, recognizing a pattern they had waited eons for someone to discover. The symmetrist's purge moved with mathematical precision through the Academy. 3 of Elena's alien allies had already been nullified, their consciousness patterns erased, bodies left as empty vessels. Elena and Zal's resistance group, now 27 members from 16 species, huddled in a maintenance sublevel, planning their desperate gambit. "The quantum communication array will be vulnerable during the standard recalibration cycle," Zal explained, manipulating a holographic schematic with 4 limbs while the other 2 monitored security feeds. "We'll have exactly 7 minutes before the overlapping security protocols reactivate." Elena nodded grimly. "Will it have sufficient bandwidth for what we need?" A Chronos engineer, a being that experienced time non-linearly, rippled its temporal field. If we overload the primary buffers and reroute through the emergency channels, yes. But it will alert security instantly. Then we need to make those minutes count, Elena said. Their mission began at what humans would call midnight, using Zal's multidimensional appendages to bypass 16 layers of increasingly sophisticated security. They infiltrated the array control center. The young Kronos engineer froze 2 guards in localized time bubbles while Elena accessed the system. Establishing direct link to Earth, she announced, fingers flying across adapted controls. Bypassing all consortium filters. Warning alarms blared immediately as she completed the connection. On Earth, her message reached not just her colleagues but spread across the planet's networks, translated automatically into every human language. "This is Dr. Elena Reyes," she transmitted. "I don't have time to explain everything, but I need humanity's help. I'm sending data packets containing the origin equation fragments. I need as many different perspectives as possible, not just physicists but musicians, artists, children, poets, anyone who might see patterns differently." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Earth's quantum networks lit up with activity as millions of humans began analyzing the fragments, their diverse perspectives flooding back through the connection. In the control center, security forces were already burning through the barricaded doors. Elena watched in awe as the human responses materialized in the holographic display. A physicist in Tokyo connecting the equation to string theory harmonics, jazz musicians in New Orleans recognizing improvisational patterns, kindergarteners in Kenya seeing shapes that reminded them of natural landscapes, poets in Argentina finding rhythmic structures similar to ancient verses. The collective human consciousness surged through the connection, overwhelming the Academy's systems and projecting a dazzling neural light show throughout the station, billions of unique human perspectives interacting with the equation simultaneously. "They're breaking through," Zal warned as the doors began to melt, but Elena barely heard, transfixed by what was happening to the equation. Under the influence of Earth's collective consciousness, its components were rearranging themselves, forming not just a formula but a map, a 4-dimensional navigational chart showing coordinates near the galactic core. "It's not just an equation," she whispered in realization. "It's directions." The doors exploded inward as symmetrist security forces stormed the chamber, weapons charged. Elena braced for nullification, when suddenly the attackers froze, suspended in probability fields. The architect phased through the ceiling, its multidimensional form rippling with authority. "Enough," it commanded, neutralizing the security forces with a gesture. "I have been monitoring this experiment with great interest." It turned to Elena, its impossible gaze focusing on her. "Your species has done what none other could. You've revealed the equation's true nature, not as abstract mathematics but as a map to the origin point itself." The architect's form shifted, revealing aspects of itself previously hidden. "I am hereby issuing an executive emergency authorization for an expedition to these coordinates." It gestured toward the now transformed equation. "The human will lead this mission." As stunned silence fell over the chamber, Elena realized the true journey was only beginning. The expedition vessel emerged from hyperspace into apparent emptiness, a region of space that appeared utterly unremarkable. Elena stood on the command deck, surrounded by the expedition team, Zal, the architect, and specialists from 7 species who had pledged to support her approach. "Sensors detect nothing," announced the navigation officer, a being Elena had noticed watching her with unusual intensity throughout the journey. "Standard protocols suggest we should—" "Wait," Elena interrupted, approaching the sensor array. The standard calibrations were seeking specific energy signatures, quantifiable radiation patterns, measurable gravitational distortions, all the things advanced civilizations had been programmed to value. "Let me adjust these," she said, reconfiguring the sensors according to her intuition rather than protocol. Instead of searching for specific phenomena, she calibrated them to detect patterns, harmonic relationships between seemingly unrelated energy fields, rhythmic fluctuations in background radiation, the mathematical equivalent of musical counterpoint. The navigation officer moved subtly closer. The human contaminates scientific procedure with primitive. Before he could finish, the view screen transformed. The empty void vanished, revealing they were actually surrounded by a massive structure, a construct of impossible scale folded within space-time itself, visible only when observed through the lens of pattern recognition rather than direct measurement. The origin point, the architect whispered, its multi-dimensional form contracting in what Elena had learned was an expression of awe. The navigation officer moved with sudden deadly precision, revealing himself as the symmetrist's assassin. A probability blade materialized in his appendage, aiming for Elena's throat, only to freeze inches away as the origin point itself intervened. A scanning beam of unknown energy enveloped their vessel, cutting through shields and hull as if they didn't exist. When it touched Elena, she collapsed in agony as her consciousness was forcibly extracted and examined. For 7 terrifying minutes, her body floated lifelessly, while the expedition team watched in horror, unable to intervene. Outside, the station's external arrays reconfigured, forming a massive DNA helix structure spanning miles. Ancient defense systems that had obliterated 2 escort vessels suddenly deactivated. Doors that had remained sealed since the dawn of recorded. Time began to open as Elena's body gently lowered back to the deck. When her eyes opened, they momentarily swirled with galaxies in miniature. "I'm expected," she whispered, her voice layered with harmonic overtones. Inside the origin point, they discovered chambers larger than solar systems. The architecture defied conventional physics, spaces that were simultaneously larger inside than outside, corridors that connected distant regions of spacetime, surfaces that existed in more dimensions than the eye could process. The technology they encountered wasn't mechanical, but a living blend of matter, energy, and conscious intention. Structures responded to thought. Energy fields behaved with apparent purpose. Information transferred directly to consciousness rather than through interfaces. At the structure's heart floated what Elena immediately recognized as the complete origin equation, but not as a mathematical formula. It was a template for reality itself, a blueprint incorporating both immutable constants necessary for atomic stability and artistic variables that allowed for infinite creative expression. As Elena approached, her mind began merging with the station's systems. Suddenly, she could perceive truths beyond normal human comprehension. The universe wasn't an accident or purely logical construct, but a deliberate creation, balancing structure and improvisation. "It's a composition," she gasped, as the knowledge flooded through her. "A cosmic symphony with both fixed notes and room for improvisation." The template responded to her neural patterns because they matched the creator's own cognitive architecture. A shocking revelation that suggested an unthinkable connection between humanity and the universe's architects. The universe, Elena realized with stunning clarity, was designed to be understood by minds that think like ours. The origin point's full activation sent quantum signals rippling across the universe, overriding every communications network simultaneously. Trillions of sentient beings across thousands of galaxies witnessed the revelation as Elena, her consciousness temporarily expanded by the station's ancient systems, broadcast the truth. In the Academy's highest spire, the symmetrists' grand temple imploded as their mathematical dogma collapsed under the weight of irrefutable evidence. Their perfect geometric forms destabilized, unable to process a reality that refused to conform to absolute order. Thousands of diplomatic vessels converged on the origin point, representatives of civilizations so ancient and diverse that some had never acknowledged others' existence now united in shared astonishment. Elena, now perceiving 12 dimensions simultaneously, guided the gathering through the truth she had discovered. The universe was neither accident nor equation, but a harmonic balance of order and creativity. The universe's architects, beings from a previous cosmic cycle, had created reality as a garden of possibilities rather than a predetermined mechanism. "The constants of physics," Elena explained, her voice translated simultaneously into every known language, "ensure stability. Atoms can form, Stars can burn, life can evolve. But the variables allow for infinite diversity, for consciousness itself to emerge and evolve unpredictably. She gestured toward the cosmic template, which responded to her movements, transforming to illustrate her words. The equation isn't just about how the universe began. It's about what it was designed to become. A delegation of Chronos scientists, who experienced time non-linearly, confirmed what Elena had discovered. Human evolutionary history shows deliberate protection. 17 extinction-level events diverted by astronomical improbabilities. The species was preserved intentionally. The revelation triggered transformation across galactic civilization, as species that had evolved into hyper-specialized cognitive patterns began retraining their minds toward human-like flexibility. Technologies emerged instantly as Elena helped translate the origin template's applications, star-healing matrices that could reverse supernova decay, consciousness transfer systems that eliminated death, dimensional folding that rendered all galaxies accessible. As diplomatic protocols were established between Earth and the galaxy's elder civilizations, Elena prepared for her return home, now accompanied by an armada of ambassador vessels and honored with the title of Pattern Keeper, a position that hadn't existed since the universe's earliest days. Before departure, the architect approached her privately within the heart of the origin point. "There is one final revelation the station has shown me," it said, its form now permanently altered by exposure to the template. The universe wasn't created merely for existence. The deepest systems of the origin point activated at the architect's signal, revealing a truth so profound that Elena felt her expanded consciousness struggle to comprehend it. "It's an incubator," she whispered as understanding dawned. "A cradle for minds that could eventually join the creators." The architect confirmed. "The next universal cycle will require architects, minds that understand both mathematical necessity and creative possibility." Elena looked at the cosmic template with new understanding. Humanity's perceived weakness, being too generalist, too emotional, too intuitive, had actually been their cosmic purpose all along. "We're not just meant to understand the universe," Elena realized. "We're meant to help create the next one." As the expedition prepared to return to Earth, Elena stood at the viewing portal, watching galaxies spin in the distance. For the first time, she understood why a seemingly insignificant species on an unremarkable planet might matter profoundly to the cosmos. The universe hadn't been waiting for someone to calculate it. It had been waiting for someone to understand it.